idea of neshamas being called mahalchim. They're called travelers. Even though the malachim are standing still, malach and neshamas are called mahalchim. Primarily, the mahalach of the neshama is down here, because above it still says Chay Hashem Asher Amadati L'Fanav, I stood. So even a neshama above is still considered oimid. Specifically down here, how come? Because of neshama, even the way it's a neshama, the Atzilus is still limited, just like Atzilus is limited. And to be able to be called a mahalach, you need to go out of limitations and beyond constriction. And that happens when the neshama joins with the body down here, when the neshama deals with the physical mitzvahs down here in this world, then you have the union, not like the union of malachim, which even though the Moshe Zakuta says it's a zivu gufni, it's like a mating of a chasna and kala, but it's still an external union like the betrothal, like the first stage of the chasna. Whereas the union that takes place, that neshamas have, especially through Torah mitzvahs, occurs in the dafke in this world through Torah mitzvahs. That's like the zivu gufni, that's pnimius, not just chitzonius, and that's what makes a neshama mahal. Then we added, and that's because it connects with the soiv kalam and beyond, say the ishtalshlos, beyond limitations. And then we explained an even deeper level, that this level of mahalach occurs because of our avoida and learning pnimius haTorah, and the avoida that has to do with the pnimius, because since the pnimius haTorah is a level that's obligable, and therefore it connects the sosim of our neshama, the concealed part of our neshama, with the concealed part of Hashem, the level of soiv kalam and beyond. That's what makes a neshama truly be a mahalach. Whereas if a person just fulfills the Torah mitzvahs with the galia of a neshama, by studying only the galia of the Torah, so then the connection is only with the revealed part. It's a limited part of Torah, as we mentioned. The Torah is limited and defined in the nigla, as opposed to the pnimis haTorah. So therefore, the true idea of reaching a level of mahalach through Torah mitzvahs down here is through the connection that comes with pnimis haTorah, that the sasim deraisa, the concealed part of the Torah, connects the concealed part of our neshama with the concealed part of Hashem. Okay, so we're holding the bottom of page Zayin, Zayin, line 29. So now we're going to get back to the beginning of the Maimer. That the title of the Maimer was Lahavin, Inyan, Hilullah, Drashb. We wanted to understand what's this idea that we celebrate the yard site of the Drashb. How can a yard site be a time of celebration, and we call it a celebration like a Hilullah? Hilullah means a chasana celebration. But based on this, we explained that the whole connection of a Yid down here with Hashem is similar to the zivu gufni of a wedding. According to this will be understood. The Hilullah of the Rashbi, the Niklolus in Hilullah in Chasana, the general idea of a Hilullah is a wedding. What's the point of the wedding? So its goal and its purpose will prove to be fruitful and multiply. That's the idea of giving birth. And then we know that in the idea of giving birth, that is where the Ein Sof manifests. That's why we had the question: if Malachim have the idea of zivug, so then they should have Hilullah also. And if they have Hilullah, then they have the power of Ein Sof, so they should be Mahalchim. And for that, we have to explain their zivug is only, even though it's a zivug gufni, it's still only chitzonius. Yes, but in the idea of birth, top of line 1. In giving birth, there's a revelation of the Ein Sof down here below, in actuality, in a revealed way, because of the infinite power of procreation, that every generation goes on and on and on. Well, according to what's explained earlier in the 5th Eis of the Maimer, Yesh be'inyan hachasna hamaylo, the zivu gufni, in a wedding, there's the advantage of the bodily mating. Loidak b'chitzayni is not just in the external way, like malachim have the zivu gufni, alagam b'pnimiyusay, also internally, she'ilizel and nimtzah filates malachim, that this advantage is something that's not found even by malachim. Why is it necessary that there should be a zivug gufni, even bepnimius, more so than malachim, or what forces us to say that it must be such a type of zivug gufni bepnimius? We know through this union is born the seed, the children, the descendants that are blessed by Hashem. Afterwards will be by this person. It's interesting, it connects the physicality with the spiritual, the idea of the study that these children that are called Zera Beirach Havaya, they're blessed by Hashem, they will manifest the Oidin Sof as well in their lives by them studying the inner part of the Torah. In the inner part of the Torah, we know there's a level of the inner part of the Atik, which we said will become revealed when Mashiach comes, but it's already embedded in the inner part of the Torah. And through that inner level of Atik, that's embedded and found in the inner part of the Torah, so through that through that becomes the traveling in the Neshama in the most highest way, higher even than the neshama down here that does Torah mitzvahs without the benefit of Primus HaTorah. Why is that so? As we said yesterday, these kashrus and because then the neshama, through the concealed part of the Torah, binds himself with the concealed part of Hashem, soivim and higher, which is beyond the worlds completely, without limitation. That's the unique thing of the Yortzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which took place on Lag BaOmer, the Pnimius HaTorah. It's brought down in Mamorim, the Rebbe Rashab, the Frierdiker Rebbe, that just like the midgle of the Torah has its Matan Torah, that's on Shavuos. So even prior to Shavuos, on Lag BaOmer, there's the date of the giving of the Torah, Pnimius HaTorah. That's the Yortzeit of the Rashbi. Now the Rebbe says, of course, it doesn't mean that Pnimius HaTorah was not given by Matan Torah. All the secrets of the Zohar and all the secrets of Pnimius HaTorah, even though in general they were all given at the time of Matan Torah, but then it was concealed. And Lag BaOmer signifies and indicates the date of the revelation of the Matan Torah of Pnimius HaTorah. How come? Why is it called the Matan Torah of Pnimius HaTorah? Since the Rashbi began the revelation of the inner part of the Torah. That's also the reason why Lag BaOmer is connected with the idea of birth. What's the connection? Like we find in many Mamorim of Lag BaOmer, they bring down that the Rashbi said a Torah on the following pasuk. Shemaskil the pasuk, they begin with the pasuk, behold, how good and how pleasant it is when brothers are sitting together. And this is something that the Rashbi said when it was a time that the world needed rain, and they came to ask him about rain, and he just said a Torah on that, and the rain came down automatically. So many Mamar Chassidus connected with Lag BaOmer will begin with that pasuk. So what does that have to do with our topic? This idea. So he says that this idea of Sheves Achim Gam Yochad, the union of brothers or siblings, indicates it indicates the union of masculine and feminine, male and female. Ze'er Ampinu Malchus, the level of Midos and Malchus, and from that comes down the idea of birth. Chochma, Bina, Ava are likened to father and mother, like we have at the beginning of Tanya. Chochma is the father, Bina is the mother. But the Midas are called Ben, son, masculine, and Malchus is called daughter, feminine. So when we talk about they are like siblings, and in siblings, there's the level of the union that brings birth. By the way, I remember correctly, Chassidus talks about it, how in Oilmas Ol Yoinim, there is an idea of siblings joining in a union of birth, even though down here in the physical world, talks about the contrast, why in the physical world you can't have that. But sometimes, the Mawarim explains, sometimes something that a very high level beruchnius cannot manifest itself down here begashmis. But that's a side point. So when we talk about Shevet, Achim, Gam, Yochad, we're talking about the siblings joining together. We're talking about Zeir, Ampin, and Malchus. And that means that's the feminine and the masculine, which brings about the idea of birth. So that's why Lag BaOmer, the Rabbeim said in Mamorim that began with this pasuk, because Lag BaOmer is also about this idea of birth, because birth has to do with the pnimius, birth has to do with the yichud gufni, and it expressed itself in the idea of pnimius hatoira, which brings down from the level of soiv and higher. And then the Rebbe says there's a practical connection, even a more down-to-earth connection between Lag BaOmer and the idea of birth. This is also the simple explanation. In the story of our Rabbeim, says that by the midgle Rebbe specifically on Lag BaOmer, there were very great miracles concerning the idea of having living, surviving children, that the midgle Rebbe used to go out to the field and used to give brachas, specifically more so than anything else, and was known at that time was a specifically mesugel time for the midgle Rebbe for brachas for children. Why? Because the idea of pnimius hatoira has to do with the pnimius level of the Ein Sof. Therefore, it expresses itself. The Ein Sof expresses itself in children. That's why it has to do with Lag BaOmer. Top of page Yud-Ches. So now he goes on and asks, this is all fine and good, the connection that we're explaining with Pnimius HaTorah. But seemingly, why is it limited only to Pnimius HaTorah? And why is it limited only to an idea of Lag BaOmer? Seemingly, we should have this also in general study of Torah mitzvah, study of Torah and performance of mitzvahs. And seemingly we should have this by the passing of even tzaddikim that were not responsible for the revelation of Pnimius HaTorah. Let's see inside the question. We still need to understand the general idea of godliness is incomparable to the world, and higher and way beyond and transcends the world. If that's the case, though it's true that there's an incomparable level of traveling beyond limitation through the inner part of the Torah, like we said, because then the concealed part of it connects himself with the concealed part of Hashem. Apple became, despite that unique quality that Pnimius HaTorah has, even Shaydei Klolos in the Limrat Torah V'kim Mitzvah Mevarim Nitzutzim Ban. Since through the general idea of Torah studying, fulfilling the mitzvahs, we refine the sparks of Ban, like we mentioned earlier in the Maimer, that Shema, through our Torah mitzvahs, comes down and deals with the sparks that are in the worlds of Bria, having to do with Shem Ban of Hashem. And through that, we tap into a level that's higher even than Ma. Umisalim, Lasag, they go up all the way to the level of Shem Sag. It has to do with the level of the crown that his mother gave him, Kanal Siv Dalet. So it's a very high level. It has to do with the world of Tayu. It's also transcendent. And that is done with every mitzvah that we do. And every piece of Torah that we learn, even Nigla the Torah. How they moving? It's understood. Even through the revealed part of the Torah, there becomes the joining of opposites. Through the revelation and drawing down from a place that's totally beyond these two opposites, totally beyond Ma'uban, totally beyond the spiritual and the physical. Therefore, it can cause Mach to come down to Ba. Therefore, it can cause the elevation of the sparks. So if you have such a great revelation that enables this type of joining of opposites, so then what's so unique about Pnimius HaTorah? So therefore, surely, in all mitzvahs and in any part of Torah, there's the idea of traveling versus standing still, and there's the idea of the chasana type of thing that we have the revelation of the Ein Sof. And the Rebbe says this is also this question that Tzemach Tzedek formulates in a little bit of a different manner, and he says it as follows: "No, Gam, Vizel Mashemam Maimer." That's also what the Tzemach Tzedek continues in his Maimer. Quote: he says we need to understand at least in other tzaddikim, that they're what they did was only they revealed the revealed part of the Torah. They also have and manifested the level of traveling instead of standing still. And it should be called a chasana. Why is it a fast day? It's brought down Shulchan Aruch that many people fast on Zayin Adar, the day that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. There is a concept of the passing of a tzaddik is a day not of celebration and joy, but it's a day of fasting. The same thing we know it says concerning why wasn't the miracle of Shabbos HaGadol, why is it celebrate on Shabbos instead of the day of the month, which was the 10th of Nisan? And that's when we should celebrate the time when the Egyptian firstborns made a civil war against the rest of the Egyptians. And so we say, Alter Rebbe brings on Shulchan Aruch because we didn't want to establish a special day of celebration on the 10th of Nisan, since the 10th of Nisan is Miriam's yahrzeit, which would essentially have to do with being a fast day. It's the month of Nisan. I'm not going to get into if we actually fast. But the point is that we see in different places, even in Shulchan Aruch, halacha, that the passing of a tzaddik is not linked with idea of chasana and celebration, but it's linked with a fast. Maybe Bas calls on Maimer like it brings at the beginning of the Maimer concerning the celebration, the yahrzeit of Rabbi Yochanan. This is what the Tzemach Tzedek asked at the beginning of the Maimer. What is it different? The Hilullah of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Mishar Misas Tzadikim, than other Tzadikim's dates of passing. Shekayim Tainis, so we establish a fast, which is the total opposite. They were involved in Nigla. They were involved in mitzvahs. They had the connection of Ma'oban, bringing down Matorah Shituloi Imai. They also have the level of Mahalchim. They also have the level of the Ein Sof. It's like the level of Hillel and birth and so on. So why is it considered a day of fasting, etc.? Any questions? Continuing on the second paragraph. In Ois Ches, the 14th page of the Maimer, line 19. Here is the explanation why by other tzaddikim it's not a level of hilullah, it's not a celebration like a chasanim. Surely, in all other tzaddikim, there's the idea of the party and the celebration. Even since through the avodah, there is the joining of the two opposites of ma and ban, which shows that it has a revelation from higher, from Sag, and so on. Especially what's explained at length in the Igeres HaKodesh, chapter 27, and also the beer that's written on that Igeres HaKodesh. So the Alter Rebbe says over there a very important thing. The significance of the yahrzeit is not just that it's a conclusion and it's the putting the end and the final period to the life and the accomplishments of the tzaddik, but rather that shebe'ez haistalkus nasa halos ma'im nukvin mikol ma'isa v'terdosoi v'avidosoi asher ovid kol mechayim. The reason why the day of the yahrzeit is so significant, that because the time of the passing then becomes Aisrus Dulasato, what he calls the elevation of the feminine water. From all his actions, all his Torah, and all his avodah that he did throughout the days of his life, these become elevated, and they are all together now he has not just the last day of his life, but in that last moment of his life, when the Neshama is going up, all the Torah that he accomplished, his entire lifetime comes together in a very powerful energy. And what does it cause? Not only does it come together and go up, but he says it's Maim Nukvin. Maim Nukvin means an inspiration from below. The purpose and the goal of the inspiration from below is to draw down from above. So the Alter Rebbe continues over there to explain that this Mayim Nukvin that comes from the entire lifetime of his Torah mitzvahs coming together, so it causes, Mamshel Levi continues to explain, Shaydez and Nimshach ve'yored bechinas Mayim dechurim, through that is drawn down the sense, the masculine waters, the Serusa Dola Elam, mitikun v'noitzer chesed meshloiser mil sarachmi, from the specific level of a noitzer chesed in the 13 attributes of mercy, one of the 13 attributes of the noitzer chesed. That's what comes down in response to the elevation of all the Torah and avodah that a person did, that the tzaddik did all of his life. Noida, like it's known, shekolam Allah adam she'omla nafshi b'chayev, the entire toil of a person that a person toiled his entire lifetime. Meir mizgala b'chinas gilu beis also shines and is revealed in a revealed state during his passing. Shezel gilu shalamayim komli devak bolo. It's a revelation beyond all measure and boundary, and that's true across the board. Any person. So therefore, when every tzaddik passes away, even someone that was not involved in Pnimius HaTorah, even someone that was only righteous in fulfillment of mitzvahs and only was known for his study and spreading of the nigla of Torah, even that tzaddik draws down from the shloisher midas harachman, from a mile meseder ishtalshlos, from v'tikum and noiser chesed, such a high level. So therefore, what's again the difference between the Rashbi and other tzaddik? The Rebbe continues, became still in all, hילולא b'chol shara tzaddikim hu top of page Yutes. The main celebration, the wedding celebration of this great revelation that happens at the time of a passing of a tzaddik, that we say because of the Mayim Nukvin, because of the Srusto Asata of his entire avodah of his whole life, it draws down a great oil from above. That great oil is mainly drawn down in the oil Masal Yoin. Kasham nitoisiv oil, that over there, above in the spiritual realm, is added a light, until a light that's incomparable. We say to him even more so, that idea of the hילולא, the time of the celebration of the chasana type of revelation is to be found by the tzaddik himself, even shenasa chibur nishmas tzaddik im abirurim shelo. At the time of his passing, now there's a true union of the neshama of the tzaddik with the sparks that he refined. Kaniskale, like we mentioned earlier, shekolam Allah adam shamla nafshi b'chayev, the entire toil that a person worked during his whole life. Meir mizgal b'chinas gilu beis p'turasai, shines and is revealed in a revealed way during his passing. Shazel bedugmas chibur ma'oban, that's similar to the union of the two names of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Ma that's mevarer and the Ban that becomes refined. Shaydez and Nasali is Ban Lasag. Through that, Shem Ban goes all the way up to Shem Sag, like we said. That's has to do with the world of Toyu, Iron Seder Shtalshlos, to Inyan Ba Torah. That's the level of the crown that his mother coronated him with. In other words, the level of the Gilui HaKeser. Therefore, on the date of a passing of any tzaddik that is in the way of a traveling that's incomparable to anything else, it's similar to the chasana, that by chasana there's the revelation of the Ein Sof in actuality. But this revelation that happens by the tzaddik is only by the tzaddik personally. So this great revelation that takes place on the passing of an ordinary tzaddik, or a tzaddik that's also only associated with nigla, is either in the spiritual worlds or to the tzaddik himself. Gam inyan zayt la tzaddik asmin rak lamayla. Even this idea by the tzaddik is also above. Masha enkin lamata de chosera. When the tzaddik leaves this world, by the ordinary tzaddik, so down here below, now the light is lacking. We are missing the tzaddik, and we have nothing else that's like replacing it. No greater revelation to celebrate it, and to mark. Initial kindness. Therefore, down here below, this becomes transformed into a fast day, al hedera oir, because of the lack of revelation and light. And concerning this, because of this lack of light that's to be found by other tzaddikim, there's a special advantage by Reb Shimon ben Yochai that he studied and he taught the inner part of the Torah that ensures, as he's soon going to explain, that the light does come down. That's why by the Rashbi it is a celebration, because it's not a lack of light, it is actually a greater revelation of light. Now, to be able to understand that, the Rebbe is going to analyze 2 points that we find in the Geras HaKodesh Chav Zayin, that the Alter Rebbe speaks about what occurs with the nefesh of the tzaddik in the passing and the ruach and the neshama of the tzaddik when it passes. And based on that, he's going to explain the difference between the light that does come down by those that reveal Pnimis HaTorah versus what goes missing and what is lacking by those that did not reveal Pnimis HaTorah. All they had was midgle. Line 17. Now, this will be understood according to what's explained in the Geras HaKodesh that was mentioned before. 2 things occur, 2 aspects happen with their neshamas by the passing of tzaddik. That's the idea of the yard site of Reb Shimon ben Yochai, that with one bond, with one knot, I have bound myself with Hashem. That's what the Reb Shimon ben Yochai said at the eve of his passing. In addition, the first thing that occurs when, or point 1 that happens with the passing of tzaddik, through the passing of the tzaddik, there is now a ray and revelation that comes to the students of the tzaddik, but it's not clothed in their brain. It's not something that they can incorporate and can feel in an internalized way. It shines upon them from above. But what benefit does it do? Even this transcendent revelation, it inserts in their heart feelings and thoughts of tshuva. But it's only thoughts of tshuva, that's why it's maki. Comes out from the Alter Rebbe Perek of Zayin. This ray that remains in a way of makif upon the person, that is nimshechet b'chinas nefesh tzaddik, that comes from the lowest level of the tzaddik, the nefesh. The inyan hasheni, there's a second thing that comes down when the tzaddik passes away. What comes down from the essential level of ruach of the tzaddik. What's it mean, the essential level? Because the essential level of ruach of the tzaddik was not available to the students while he was still alive. Not like when the tzaddik was still alive. When the students were taking from the tzaddik's ruach, they had to do so being filtered. The ruach came into the nefesh, and the nefesh came into the body, and these 2 filters of the nefesh and the guf filtered and limited the ruach of the tzaddik that the students received. As opposed to after the passing of the tzaddik, they are able to receive from his essential level of ruach, not the filtered level of ruach. But not only is it a difference between the essential versus the filtered level of ruach, but it's also the difference between makif and pnimi that we said from the nefesh that you receive from the makif. This hamshacha from the essential ruach of the tzaddik is not just in a state that's transcendent, like we said, the nefesh of the tzaddik gives to the students in the way of makif. Rather, the ruchai ha'atzmis of the tzaddik comes down into the students in a way that's internalized. The way it's obvious from the Geras HaKodesh, he says, it affects more than just the thoughts of tshuva, which the nefesh of the tzaddik affected in the makif, but it's also the ruchai ha'atzmis of the tzaddik affects the drawing down of the life of the tzaddik, which the life of the tzaddik is that the life of the tzaddik, the Alter Rebbe explains, is not just a life of flesh, but the idea of belief in Hashem. And so the Alter Rebbe says that the love of Hashem and the awe of Hashem, that's the life of the tzaddik, Yiras Hashem l'chaim. So that, as it says in the pasuk, that the awe of Hashem is to life. In other words, that's the life of the tzaddik. So these are the things that the Ruach HaAtzmis shares with his students in a way that it's internalized, not just in a way of makif. Now, when he shares with his students this level of Ava, the Yira, and Amunah, by extension, he's sharing with them the idea of Torah mitzvahs, because that's the source for it. That's a general idea of Torah and mitzvahs. Because the love is the root for all the 248 positive commandments, and awe is the root for all the 365 negative commandments. Based on these two components, these two aspects that occur in the passing of a tzaddik, the Alter Rebbe will explain tomorrow more so the difference between what comes down in the tzaddik that passed away, that revealed Pnimius HaTorah, versus those that were only involved in the revelation of midgle. Any questions?